take off, take flight with you. For we never fly, but we're flying.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Take Flight Podcast. Back again this week with a bite-sized takeaway episode. It's my turn, Shuwel, hosting for you today. For those that are new, these Take Flight takeaway episodes are short, bite-sized episodes of around 10 minutes where each of us take turns to share some takeaways and learnings which we think would be of value to others. In case you haven't checked out any of these takeaway episodes before, I highly recommend you check them all out. Now, in this week's episode, I wanted to share 5 lessons from waking up at 5 a.m. for 5 years. Now, I had just relocated from Tokyo in Japan to Switzerland. ACG was around a few 100,000 in terms of assets under management at that time. My weight was very up and down. I had a good career, but at that particular time, I was in a role that I wasn't really enjoying as much. And I just felt like I needed to switch things up. And a lot of these changes stem from one habit change, and that was waking up before 5 a.m. Now, 5 years on, ACG is at £5 million in terms of our assets under management. I'm personally healthier than I've ever been. I've had a fulfilling career change since then. I've also been able to double down on my own personal development and learning through professional studying. And since then, I've also relocated countries another 3 more times and still found time to meet my amazing wife and get married. So if there's one habit that I can say this stems from, that habit was just the action of waking up earlier every day, and 5 years later, all of those changes happened. Now, in this episode, I want to share the context of why I started, the how of implementing this habit, the benefits that I found from implementing this habit, and also the 5 lessons when I reflect back on this single habit change. Now, firstly, the context of why I started. So around that time, I was in my mid to late 20s. I was living in Tokyo. At that point, I was known for late nights, later mornings, partying a lot, socializing a lot, working out in the evenings, and generally enjoying my life. But then I realized that there was this inconsistency in my routine that was not helping me. So I tried to shift. So rather than being someone who was going out in the evenings, working out in the evenings, I wanted to shift to become a morning person. So also professionally around that time, I was transitioning from a role that I didn't really enjoy. Real estate with ACG hadn't really become what it is today, and I hadn't scaled. And also, as mentioned, I had just relocated from Japan to Switzerland. So there were already a few changes. Some I liked, some I didn't like. But I thought, how can I get this back on track into a different path? So that's when I decided, okay, let's just try this habit of waking up earlier and see what will change. So in terms of the how of this habit, it starts very simply of just setting my alarm to wake up before 5 a.m. Now, bear in mind, before this point, I was never a morning person. So me waking up at 5 a.m. didn't actually mean that I was going to bed any earlier, but instead I was just sleeping at the same time and then waking up earlier and feeling extremely tired. So how did this habit come about? So I started simply by setting my alarm to wake up before 5 a.m. And this didn't mean going to bed later, but actually I would end up sleeping less at the beginning just to make sure that I could wake up at 5 a.m. and get on with my day. Now, on one hand, it was great because I was getting into the habit of consistently waking up early, showing to myself that I could do it. But over a short period of time, you realize this is not consistent at all, and it's not sustainable at all. To go to bed at the same time of 10, 11, midnight, sometimes even 1 a.m., to then wake up at 5 a.m., it just was not a sustainable way to start my day. But that habit of just starting at 5 a.m. had some other knock-on effects. So in terms of how, setting that alarm to wake up at 5 a.m., trying to make a plan of what I was going to do when I would be awake. So in that sense, I started to work out in the mornings as well to start my day. And then the other element of how was having my friends keep me accountable, because we decided to change this habit all together. And if we didn't wake up at 5 a.m., then we would owe the other people in our group some money. So there was a financial implication as well, which made it more fun. Now, what were the actual benefits of waking up earlier? So there were many benefits, but the few, if I had to narrow it down, the first one was consistency. So just waking up earlier allowed me to consistently have a schedule, which forced me to also work out in the mornings as well, which is something that I never did before. I was someone who would work out 3 to 4 times a week in the evening during the week, to then becoming a morning person who would train in the mornings and 6 times a week from 6 a.m. to 7 a.m. work out, and it became a non-negotiable, and it allowed me to be more consistent. The other benefit is how my sleep habits overall improved. So before that time, I was getting inconsistent sleep, not very high quality sleep either, but this shift on waking up earlier forced me to go to bed earlier and sleep more and more. At the beginning, I wasn't getting that much better sleep. I was sleeping maybe 5-6 hours on average and poor quality, to then now consistently, especially in the last couple of years, having consistently sleeping 7 to 8 hours every night and feeling much better and still getting the early wake up as well. The third benefit was around just the unlock of time that I got to get results in my career. So just waking up earlier gave me the clarity to think about what is it that I really want to do, gave me the clarity to also plan what I wanted to do, and also gave me the time to think about how I can change and move into a different path. Without that unlock of having more hours in the morning, which allowed me to have more time during the day over a period of time, without that time, I don't think I would have had the capacity to think and do all the other things that I've done since then. This leads me to the fourth benefit, and that's been a personal benefit for me, which has been scaling Ahmed Capital Group, ACG. At that time, as mentioned, we were a few 100,000 in terms of assets under management. Now we're at £5 million plus, and I would not have had the capacity to think, do, plan, execute, work on bigger projects, put together a team, find great investors, partner with great investors, look at bigger projects. None of that would have been possible if I didn't have the extra time in the day. So whatever project that you have that you're trying to work on top of other things, working on it in the morning, first things first, when you can really focus on it with no distractions, it just unlocked a lot of time just from the habit of waking up earlier. And then the final benefit that I would share is around having the mental clarity to just start other better habits. So just from waking up earlier, I had the opportunity to really reflect about other habits that I had and cut out some vices and people and relationships that no longer served me at that time. And also just waking up earlier allowed me to have the space to think about more spiritual activities as well. All in all, making me shift my path a little bit to a path that long term was the direction I wanted to go in. Now, to close this episode, I will share 5 lessons from this habit change as well. So the one lesson that I would recommend is just to start today, whether you're looking to wake up early, whether you're looking to start a business, whether you're looking to move, whether you're looking to change careers. If you've got that decision, you've made a decision, start today. There's no point delaying it any further. If you start today, then you can build from there with the information that you have. So this small habit change, just deciding to start, helped have a positive knock-on effect in other areas. The second lesson that I would share is that it's less about the outcome and it's more about the process. So for me, waking up early, the outcome was to wake up early at 5 a.m. But actually the process of making sure my evenings were more productive, making sure that I get to sleep earlier, making sure that my sleep is a better quality, making sure that when I wake up, I now go to the gym, making sure I've got the time to work on other things. That process just from waking up earlier stems from deciding to wake up earlier. So it's less about the outcome, but it's more about the process around it where you get the real value. The third lesson is around accountability. So as mentioned, when deciding to do this habit change, we did it together as a group. One of the people was actually a member of this podcast, which is Pabilo. We did it together and this habit helped us stick to it because we had accountability from each other. So the other thing that I'd recommend is anything that you're trying to implement, get some accountability, get like-minded people around you and try and achieve together. The fourth lesson is how important time is and how much of an important resource it is. No one wants to wake up at 5 and do nothing. No one wants to wake up at 5 and scroll on their phone. No one wants to wake up at 5 and just sit there and watch TV. So if you've already made the effort to wake up earlier, you want to make that time productive, whether it's working out, going to the gym, whether it's having no distractions and working on your passion project, whatever it is, you do grow to appreciate time even more. And the final lesson is once it's working, stick to it. So as mentioned, 5 years on, I still wake up at 5 a.m. The only thing that's changed is I go to sleep earlier. So now, as mentioned, I go to bed on average between 9 to 10 p.m. most evenings and wake up at 5 to get 7 to 8 hours of good quality sleep. It's working. It's allowed me to do a lot more with my life. It makes me feel better. Whenever I'm traveling or I'm on vacation and I don't get up early, I always sense that feeling of feeling lethargic or slow or just not feeling as good as I feel when I have woken up early after a good night's sleep and being productive. So that for me means that I should stick to it while it's working. So that's the end of this week's takeaway episode. In case you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. You can find us on the social platforms at Takeflight Podcast. And if you have any specific questions for me, find me on LinkedIn or Instagram at Shuwel. Please make sure to check out our previous takeaway episodes too from the whole team and make sure to leave us a review or at least subscribe to us on whichever platform you listen to us on. If you like this episode, I'd recommend checking out episode 200, where I shared how I've invested over £100,000 in my personal development and the outcomes that I was able to achieve. We'll be back next week with a new episode for you, the flyers. Keep on taking flight.
take off, take flight with you.